Your Miami Dolphins have secured their fourth consecutive winning season, courtesy of a dominating victory over the Washington Commanders. We're talking about that here on this Victory Monday episode of Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find our shows on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Tip of the cap to the everydayers, because it is your team every day, and it is Monday. It's Victory Monday. It's Victory Monday for the 9th time in 12 games in 2023 for the Miami Dolphins. And today's Victory Monday episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase on last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I actually used Gametime myself. This post-game show coming out a little bit later than normal because I went down to D.C. It's about a 90-minute drive for me. And I was there at FedEx Field. And wow, what a cool experience it was. Not a cool experience. Well, it was a cool experience to see Tua Tagovailoa hit Tyreek Hill for 2 bombs up over the top. But really the turnout from Dolphins fans. And as this team continues to progress and they continue to check the boxes that you would hope that a team that's of the caliber of what we think this team is capable of being checks, they kind of showcase this ain't the same old Dolphins, right? And the fan turnout that you had in Washington on Fan Appreciation Day for the Commanders, it felt like a home game for Miami. The fans were loud. They were abundant. There was a lot of aqua and orange at FedEx Field, and those fans were delivered quite the treat. I guess Washington delivered their own fan appreciation gift on Fan Appreciation Day with an excuse to hit the exits early and avoid the traffic. But Miami's fans got the treat of a 45-point output that was boosted thanks to a defensive touchdown. It was boosted thanks to several long shots down the field from Tua Tagovailoa. The cherry on top was the big boy football drive that came at the end of the game with largely backups in the game for the Dolphins. A lot of good in this football game. And I think you kind of look at this from a macro perspective and just look at the stats and the output. And we'll get into the nitty gritty in the film during tomorrow's shows. Dolphins nearly doubled Washington up on first downs, 20-11. The Dolphins had 406 yards of offense, and at halftime, they were on pace for 500 yards of offense. Washington finished with 245. Washington had 2 extra drives, 11 possessions versus Miami's 9. Miami finished at 6.9 yards per play. Washington finished at 4.5 yards per play. The Dolphins as a team collectively rushed for 3.6 yards per carry. Not a great number, but again, we'll talk about that big boy drive late in the game. Washington had success on the ground. A lot of that came courtesy of Sam Howell and doing the things that Sam Howell has done all season long, but they largely put the kibosh on Sam Howell as a passer. Miami scored 45 points, and the Commanders had 23 pass attempts, and Sam Howell barely had 50% completion. Was sacked 3 times, could have been a lot worse, felt like it was a lot worse. You had some dominating performances up front for the Dolphins. The trenches won the football game for Miami, and then some explosive speed down the field. The Dolphins in this game did not turn the football over. It's the second time this season that's happened. They were only penalized 2 times for 15 yards. They won time of possession with 32 minutes and change of time of possession. They had a defensive score, pitched a clean sheet in pass protection. Like, you just go down the list. This is about as complete of a performance as the Dolphins have posted this side of 70-20. And you go in at halftime and it's 31-7. And you know you're getting the ball to start the second half, and the Dolphins perfectly executed end of half series for Miami too. Go 11 plays, 76 yards in 5 minutes and change. They leave 20 seconds left on the clock before the half. So all the talking points now we've looked at with Miami coming out of the bye and how they played the Jets and how they played the Raiders. You say, okay, yeah, they moved the ball. They ran the ball well at times. But they didn't score a lot of points. Okay, they moved the ball well. They scored a lot of points, but they turned the ball over a bunch. Those boxes were checked. And granted, it's against a 4-9 Commanders team, and you understand that comes with a certain level of competition that, Miami has to be able to sustain that against better opposition the rest of the way. But the fact that, say what you will, the team downplayed 8-3 versus 8-3 last year all week long, and they were asked about it quite a bit. Mike McDaniel, the players, everybody kind of poo-pooed it. You know what managed to find its way into the post-game speech that got posted from the Dolphins social media account from Mike McDaniel talking to the team after the game? 8-3 last year. Sure enough, you don't have to wait till week 18 to get win number 9. We don't got to sit here and clutch our pearls wondering if this team is going to finish with a winning record like we did last year, despite starting 8-3. Wall to wall. I thought Miami did a really, really, really nice job of dictating terms of this football game. Sam Howell was the get-out-of-jail-free card that bailed them out on a couple of occasions, under pressure, rolling out the opening possession, the completion that was along the sideline to Jahan Dotson, which half his body looked like it was laying out of bounds, but it wasn't called out of bounds. It was called inbounds, so you couldn't overturn it. Down to the red zone possession where Sam Howell scrambles for the 13-yard touchdown. Like that was Washington's offense. There were some performances that stood out in person that I think are things that we can take away as good. There are some performances that you could probably lament and take away as bad if you were the Dolphins, or areas of improvement, as is always the case. And those improvements are always a lot easier when you win the football game. Miami won the football game by 30 points. 45 points scored, 7 of it defense, courtesy of Andrew Van Ginkel. And when you're talking performances that were good, that's probably a good place to start. We're going to talk about some of those performances next here on this episode of Locked On Dolphins. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays can be a very stressful time. Whether or not your family gives gifts during the holidays, you get to determine what you give to yourself. And the holidays are a great time to do that. So whether it's by starting therapy, going easier on yourself through tough moments, or treating yourself to a day of complete rest, remember to give yourself some love this holiday season. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. We all like to play fantasy football, but there's always that one guy or girl in your league, we'll call him a guy in this case, that you just can't stand. He's the guy that you have to beat no matter what, because he's always talking about how good his trades are, how good the analytics of his draft is every August. You know the guy I'm talking about. Let's just call him Drew. Every league has a Drew, but you know what else Drew does? Drew brings weak tortilla chips to the tailgate, the kind that snap right in half when you're scooping guacamole, try to get the last dip of salsa. For someone who claims to be the master of trades, he has yet to make the trade for a better tortilla chip. You see, at Zach's Mighty, we believe in two things. Chips are meant to be sturdy, and Drew doesn't know the difference between a strong chip and a wet paper towel. Our chips are cut from whole tortillas the authentic way to give them the strength that you need to lift the heftiest of dips, and are fried to a corny crisp suitable for any dip at any tailgate. So this football season, don't be a Drew and choose Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips, available at all Publix locations in the deli section. Be a winner. Eat Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips. Being aware like the Dolphins. Andrew Van Ginkel, for the storyline of what took place with Jaelan Phillips, and obviously that was very prominent, courtesy of Hard Knocks. They put it front row center. It's a first-round pick. It's one of your star defensive players, as this defensive unit has really flipped the script, flipped the switch, and turned themselves into a very imposing unit. Andrew Van Ginkel has a rush off the left edge on the first drive and gets his hands on Sam Howell and flushes him out of the pocket. He can't quite finish the play, but he's ever so present. And then he gets a pick six on a perimeter screen in the first half to break the game open to a 3-score lead. You could not have possibly asked for a better reassurance that the player that you saw earlier this season in Andrew Van Ginkel is going to be the player that you continue to see playing on the edge. Emmanuel Ogbah got himself a sack. Now, I thought Emmanuel Ogbah followed that sack up with a play on the edge in the run game. That was a big negative that allowed Washington to get all the yardage back and get a first down. And there's going to be some highs and lows with that. But it was neat to see Emmanuel Ogbah also step in and make an impact play. You had those two guys on the edge that had been penciled in as the guys who are the heirs to Jaelan Phillips for the rest of the season. You got a sack and a pick six from those two guys. You like that. You don't like what we saw happen to Jerome Baker. Jerome Baker up the right sideline, gives up a reception downfield. Brandon Jones trying to knock the ball carrier out of bounds, takes out Jerome Baker's leg, has to be helped off the field. No pressure put on his leg. It was a knee injury. He was announced out very shortly after leaving the game, went straight back to the locker room. Drew Rosenhaus said he's scheduled for an MRI tomorrow. Say what you will about what Jerome Baker has and has not been for this Miami Dolphins team. He's played good football the past 2 months. And he's the green dot player on this defense. His absence will be missed for whatever time he misses. But there is good news. Mike McDaniel said in the postgame that the vibe, and it's to be determined, but the vibe that Mike McDaniel had leaving the stadium on Sunday night at FedEx Field was that Jerome Baker's injury was not a season-ending injury. Collective sigh of relief. If you want the silver lining, I thought Duke Riley played a hell of a football game. Duke Riley came in and finished tied for the team lead in tackles. He had one really good tackle in space on a throw underneath to prevent Washington from getting a first down as Miami looked to constrict this football game. And Duke's got range. I've been a big fan of Duke going back to last year. I was excited that Duke was brought back. I thought Duke could potentially be somebody who gives you some coverage reps. The concern is of the linebackers in the Dolphins nickel, when you've had to go heavy, it's been David Long that's been rotated out in favor of Andrew Van Ginkel. Well, that worked when Jaelan Phillips was on the field. With Jaelan Phillips out, Andrew Van Ginkel now presumably, unless Emmanuel Ogbah continues to step up his level of play, will be on the edge. And now not having Jerome Baker means David Long is going to have to be on the nickel group. And you're still going to probably have to find either Duke Riley to step into that other spot for whatever duration of time Jerome Baker is gone. But again, a collective sigh of relief that Mike McDaniel's vibe as of 5 o'clock this afternoon, being Sunday night, is not season ending. Or you have Emmanuel Ogbah on the field, and then Andrew Van Ginkel can still do that. But nevertheless, Duke Riley is still a new addition to the nickel unit versus it had been Jerome Baker and Andrew Van Ginkel. And with Tennessee coming up next, that's a physical front. How do you solve that riddle? That's going to be a storyline to watch this week. I think it would probably be irresponsible to expect Jerome Baker this week. But at the very least, it's a lot better than what it looked like when Jerome Baker had to leave the field and be helped off. Because you saw that happen in real time and you said, he's probably done. As far as other performances, specifically defensively, I thought Zach Sealer was a man possessed in this football game. And you knew coming in, we talked about it coming in. The Dolphins' defensive line versus the Commanders' offensive line was a talent disparity that the Dolphins should expect to win across the board. And they did. But the question was, who was going to be the guy? And it was Zach Sealer. He was a monster. An absolute monster. Unblockable at times. Penetration, running twists, immediate penetration, utilizing his hand strength to be able to knock guys back and reset the line of scrimmage. It was really, really impressive to see Sealer be as disruptive as he was. And he finished this game with a sack and a half. That gives him six and a half on the season. He also had a tackle for loss. And he probably had about 4 more plays that he could have made or nearly did make, including more sacks on Sam Howell. I thought Sealer was one of your best performers defensively in this game. Obviously, Andrew Van Ginkel with the defensive score, the play that blew the game open, Duke Riley stepping in. And how about the pass defense in general? When you take into account sack yards, they sacked Sam Howell 3 times for 20 yards. Washington finished this game with 107 net yards passing. Sam Howell had 127 yards, but they lost 20 on dropbacks in which he was sacked. The 15 points and the 245 yards of offense is a continuation of what we've seen from this Dolphins team. They allowed 13 points the last 2 weeks after the bye. So now they are averaging less than 14 points per game since the bye. Did I do that math right? Kyle does math. Yeah, just under 14 points a game. 296, 159, 245 after the bye. 267, 218 the 2 games before the bye. And Philly had 355, and then the 2 games before that against the Giants and Panthers were under 300 yards offense as well. These guys are balling out. And you will have to find a way to bridge the gap with personnel and figure out how long guys are out. One person would probably be safe to assume Javon Holland would be back next week against Tennessee. That'll be a welcomed addition because of how good of a tackler he is in the secondary. And his ability to step up and be close to the line of scrimmage, I think it brings you an extra element as well. Plus, you have Kader Kohu back in the nickel and thriving. Defensively, in spite of the injuries to Jaelan Phillips and in spite of the early injury to Jerome Baker, I thought this unit played outstanding. Washington's plays came in large part courtesy of Sam Howell just running around and making stuff happen as best as he could as a chaos merchant, which is what he's done all season. We'll talk about the offensive side of the ball. We'll talk about the offensive line. We heard about some injuries on that side of the ball, particularly up front. We'll talk about the Tua Tagovailoa Tyreek Hill connection up next here on this Victory Monday episode of Locked On Dolphins, so stick with us. I mentioned it already, but I went down to D.C. and I tapped in with my friends over at Gametime, and I got my tickets on Saturday night, and I got a great deal on my seats. If you are thinking about last-minute events, Gametime is the place because they're obsessed with finding you ways to save money on your tickets, and they're the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase because you get everything from a direct sightline of your seats before you purchase. You get all-in prices, so there are no surprise fees when you go to checkout and put your tickets into your cart. You could buy tickets in seconds with just a few taps on your phone, and it gets delivered directly to your phone. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after the game starts. You can find flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime on last-minute tickets. Lowest prices guaranteed. This was a little bit of everything. Well, we already mentioned the Dolphins came out and you played the Raiders and said, okay, well, you got 400 yards offense, but you scored 20 points. Okay, they scored 34 points against the Jets and 395 yards offense, but you turned the ball over 3 times. Those concerns were alleviating in this contest against Washington. You can't expect that to be the case all season long, but for it to be the second game off season where you did not turn the ball over and you were as aggressive as the Dolphins were, taking shots down the field, Tua Tagovailoa hitting 2 big-time hits to Tyreek Hill, you'll take it all day. Successful return of Devon Achane, made several electric plays with the ball in his hands. He scored 2 touchdowns. Let's talk about the offensive line. Teron Armstead, Kendall Lamb, Robert Hunt all dress. Teron Armstead starts. Robert Hunt starts. Kendall Lamb does not. Kendall Lamb does not make an appearance other than special teams. Keon Smith is the left tackle that's put in once Teron Armstead at halftime is announced as dealing with an ankle injury. Mike McDaniel did say after the game, I can feel your eyes rolling from here, that Teron Armstead was available to go back into the game. But naturally, if you're up 31-7 at halftime, you're probably not going to put a $20 million offensive tackle that's dealing with some injury issues back into the football game. They didn't. And Keon Smith was fine. I can't wait to watch the tape and see how Keon Smith did. Robert Hunt left this game, took a knee at one stage late or in the second half, took a knee. Mike McDaniel revealed he did re-aggravate his hamstring issue, but it was not to the severity of the initial injury, which kept him out for about a month, which is good news for Miami. They need Robert Hunt. Although Liam Eichenberg played well at left guard. But you finished this game with Keon Smith, Liam Eichenberg, Connor Williams, Lester Cotton, Austin Jackson, your starting offensive line, and they put the backup quarterback in, and they still had the big boy drive. 13 plays, 59 yards, 7 minutes and 50 seconds time of possession, and here are the plays. Devon Achane, run, 6 yards. Devon Achane, run, 6 yards. Devon Achane, run, 2 yards. Devon Achane, run, 7 yards. Devon Achane, run, 15 yards. Devon Achane, run, 5 yards. Jeff Wilson, run, 1 yard. Jeff Wilson, run, 3 yards. Jeff Wilson, run, 6 yards. Jeff Wilson, run, 1 yard. Devon Achane, run, 2 yards. Mike White, touch pass, jet motion, glorified run for 3 yards. 2-minute warning, Devon Achane, run, 2 yards, touchdown. Are you kidding me? You went 13 plays with 12 runs with an offensive line of Keon Smith, Liam Eichenberg, Connor Williams, Lester Cotton, Austin Jackson, and you stuffed the ball down their throats? For the second consecutive week, the Dolphins had a big boy December and January football drive offensively to close a game. Bravo. Job well done. So as much as this game is about Tua Tagovailoa hitting Tyreek Hill against press man coverage right off the jump for an explosive score on the Dolphins' first possession offensively, they go 3 plays, 86 yards in a minute and 28. Or as much as this is about Tua Tagovailoa hitting Tyreek Hill for a 60-yard touchdown, dropping it beautifully over the outside shoulder and a beautiful adjustment from Tyreek Hill, as much as this offense is about that, and for the second consecutive week, this offense hitting shots down the field outside the numbers, as much as it's about that, I look at that drive at the end of the game. And that's the kind of stuff that this offense is going to be made of down the stretch if they're going to go where we want them to go. And for the second consecutive week, arguably against players up front that could combat it, particularly when you consider who was left in the game, you still did it. You still executed. Guys ran hard. Awesome stuff. Dolphins 9-3 on the season. They are home Monday Night Football against the Tennessee Titans. We will get a chance to see the second place AFC East team, the Buffalo Bills, play in Kansas City, with a chance for the Dolphins to potentially move their magic number to 1 in the AFC East. If the Bills lose in Kansas City and Miami wins next Monday, their magic number to clinch the division is 1. We'll tackle the game tape, and then we will tackle this Tennessee Titans team and the build up to that contest the rest of this week on Locked On Dolphins. Hope you guys enjoy Victory Monday here in Club Dub. Make yourselves comfy. We've been here quite often this season, and we're hoping that continues. Hit subscribe. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. I am out of here. Fins up and enjoy the win.